Welcome back to the Playdate with Freshly Picked, and I am Fifi Latier, and I've got Kenzie Hosea here with us again today.
Hello.
Let's get into it.
Okay.
Do we need an icebreaker?
Sure.
Okay. So, I don't really have one.
All right.
Okay. We talked a little bit last time about, what it was like parenting a child that had autism. So now, as I kind of said in our previous episode, you have a story that is one of a lot of empowerment and growth. And I feel like a lot of it partially stems from some of the things that brought a lot of sadness and sorrow as well. And I think that one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to bring you on is I do think that it is talked about more now, but I think that still, again, there's power in similar stories and shared experiences. And maybe there is someone out there that could benefit from what you have to say today. So, you have 3 kids, but you've had many more pregnancies.
Mhm.
And so kind of to get in there a little bit, I want to open that up to you and kind of share how many has it been and what has it been like navigating that grief or that loss?
Yeah. So I've had, I feel like I've lost count at this point, but I think I've had 10 miscarriages, including Lennon. We didn't have any real issues getting pregnant with our first. I think it took maybe 2 or 3 months to get pregnant with him. No complications, no nothing. And then before our daughter was born, I had 2 miscarriages. So it started after our first. So it really was unexpected. I hadn't really had anyone in my family that I knew about at the time that had miscarriages. My mom had never had miscarriages, so it wasn't something that was like regularly talked about. But yeah, 10 I think is where I'm at.
That is a lot of loss. And I think that something to kind of know is that, for one, you are still one of probably the kindest and happiest people ever, but also you're really loving to all of your kids. And so, what was it like initially handling and going and navigating through all of this grief when you were notified or you knew that this pregnancy was no longer viable?
I feel like there's been different stages through all of them. The first initial ones, they've all been first term except for one. So the first ones that came really out of the blue, that was hard just because it was like new, it was unexpected, so there was a lot of, I guess, extra grieving that happened there. And just kind of like shock. And then as after we had our daughter, I had multiple miscarriages after that. And at that point, it was like we kind of expect it. And it kind of changed our perspective on timelines and on all the planning that you would normally do. I would still grieve with each one. I was still sad with each one. But I think I just approached it with kind of a different mindset because it just changes you once you've had a miscarriage. I think you just, you start to protect yourself mentally a little bit more. So through the middle ones, I was definitely still, sad. But it didn't have the same sting, I guess, as like the first one did. And then when we got pregnant with Lennon, I feel like I had finally reached the point, I had passed the 12 weeks. And so I thought, everything's fine. We're good. My doctor was super reassuring. And then I went in. I feel like I'd finally like let my guard down and just expected everything to work out. And I went in for, I think, some minor bleeding. And with all the other ones, it was like major that lasted like days. But with this one, it was just like little spotting. And so with me, I have to call in for everything that happens just because I'm high risk at this point. So I called in and they wanted me to come in for an ultrasound. And I think I was watching your son. Yeah, I was.
You were.
And I called one of our other sister-in-laws because I had to run in and go do this. And I really like had my guard completely down. Like it was very like minor bleeding. I was not super worried at all. And went in for the ultrasound. And I swear I remember her telling me like, okay, we'll see you like at the 20 week. And we'll have your doctor come talk to you. So I am literally thinking everything is good because she did not say anything or like acknowledge anything.
Yeah.
And I remember when my doctor came in, like, I think I was like cracking jokes with him or something. And then like I saw his face like change and I was like, oh, like something's not right. And he had told me that all of the amniotic fluid was gone. And it just like shattered me. I had gone in by myself too. Because Nate had just left on a boys' trip that morning. And I just was like not ready for that. Okay, thank you. I was just, my guard was completely down. I was not expecting it. I had never had that problem with any of my other pregnancies. And he really said like there's no cause for it. There's no way to stop it. Like we don't know like why or how it happened. And basically he said like she won't develop anymore. And yeah, so that it just rocked my whole world. Nate flew home that night and we had to wait the weekend and go in, I think it was on the next Monday, to do another ultrasound with the high risk doctors. I forget what it's called. Maternal fetal medicine, I think, just to check if anything had changed or if, anything was different. And we did that and nothing had changed. And they basically on the spot just said like if you continue you can get an infection and you may not be able to have kids in the future and you would probably have to be in the hospital like the remainder of your pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
But basically they just said, like, there's no fluid left, and, like, she just won't have room to develop anymore. So, I feel like that one rocked my world in a different kind of way. I still delivered her, still went through all the postpartum body stuff. My milk still came in. Um, just all the things.
Mhm.
And so it was just so much harder to navigate. And then, yeah, I feel like there's the most aftermath with that one, obviously, with her being, I was 18 and a half weeks along, but still had 2 more miscarriages after her. And then we got pregnant with our 1-year-old son now. But yeah, it's been an up and down journey with all of them, and there's been different stages, and yeah, it's
Yeah. Going back to Lennon really quick, what was probably the best way that you guys felt supported from your family? Or maybe even, I mean, obviously this affected you and Nate, but how did he help support you in that time of need as well? You know, like what was that like, or
yeah.
what helps?
I mean, we had lots of support from family, which was amazing, and we wouldn't have gotten through it without all that support. I had a lot of support from friends too. I think it was tricky for a while because we just navigated the grief in different ways. And I think Nate thought he needed to be, like, strong for us and for the family and show that strength, but it actually, like, made me feel alone at times just because I felt like I was going through it alone. But I actually one day, I had to go to Kirsten's house, and I pulled up and his car was there, and I was like, "Oh, this is weird, like, what's going on?" And I pull up next to him or I pull up behind him, and I just walked to the car was on, and he was just sitting in there, and I, like, knocked on the door, and he just looks up, and he's bawling.
Mm,
Um, and so I feel like that was the first time I really, like, got to see that it was affecting him too.
yeah.
And from then I was like, "Okay, I don't need you to be strong, like, I need you to be with me." Um, so that was super helpful. Even though I'm sure he didn't love me walking up on him during that time, but overall it was good for us, and I think it helped us, move forward, like, knowing that we were in it together and that we were both feeling the grief. Um, yeah, but the family support was huge. I mean, you guys took our kids a ton. My family took our kids a ton. Our ward had meals, our family had meals. I think we had meals for, like, a month or 2 straight. Like, it was wild, and yeah, that was super helpful too. Just it was one of the things that was hard to navigate was we still had 2 other kids at home who needed their parents, and I felt like I was really struggling to be there for them. Um, and then they were grieving too in their own little ways. And, we were having to plan the funeral and just do all these things, and I feel like taking care of myself just, like, went to the wayside. Like, I just didn't have time to focus on that. I was just going through all the emotions. But it was helpful. Like, the help that we did have in all those ways was, like, incredible, and it would have been so hard to navigate without that support. So,
First of all, thank you for just being super vulnerable and open. I think that I want to not necessarily change gears, but go into this area. You know, you have your son now who's 1 years old. Um, you know, you've kind of shared how it felt to experience miscarriages and infant loss. But what was it like navigating that pregnancy that stuck? The pregnancy that you weren't sure would happen or wouldn't sure would make it, but ended up coming to term. What
yeah.
was that like?
That was really hard too. I was in therapy, and so I had been in therapy before that, but once I was pregnant, like, that was a big focus of therapy, and I really just had to take it one day at a time. I think when you've experienced miscarriages or, had stillbirths, any type of infant loss, I think, for me at least, it's hard to want to put a lot of focus on the future, specifically, like, in regards to that child. It can be hard to be hopeful about the pregnancy, and like I said earlier, you just kinda wanna protect yourself, and so I dealt with a ton of anxiety after having Lennon, and so that definitely trickled into the next pregnancy. Again, I had had 2 miscarriages before I got after Lennon and before getting pregnant with him, but I really just came to a point where Nate asked me, like, I'm like, "I can be done, like, I'm happy with our 2," and I just couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't complete, and that I kind of avoided that for a while because it was really scary to, like, even put trying again out there, just knowing, like, what could happen, and at that point, we were grateful for the early miscarriages, like, just your whole perspective shifts from expecting a healthy child to, if I miscarry, like, just let it be in the first trimester, let it be early, and so, yeah, I think I just couldn't shake that feeling that we weren't done, and I just put all my faith in God at that point, and I I just got strength from that, and even though we had those other 2 miscarriages afterwards, I still couldn't shake the feeling after that, and so once we were pregnant again, I felt really good about things, and just whatever happened was gonna happen, and we were gonna be okay no matter what, but it was a day-to-day battle. I still would have panic attacks. I was having a really hard time sleeping. So, yeah, I got some things that helped. I had a Doppler little thing at home so I could, like, hear the heartbeat when I wanted, and so there was things and steps I took so that, like, I felt as comfortable as I could. But then just, yeah, being in therapy and working on, like, just being really present in the moment and just focusing on the day in front of you and not thinking too far ahead, because I feel like that's what would make my thoughts shift, like, bad. I'm like, "What if everything goes wrong?"
Yeah.
type of thoughts, so, yeah, it was still really hard to navigate, but I feel like just gained some extra tools to
Mhm.
help push through it.
Yeah. I feel like I don't even know if I ever told you this. I really don't. I don't think I've ever told anyone really. But like when you were losing Lennon, like you lost her the day I was bringing my daughter into the world.
Oh, yeah.
So it rocked me in a really different way.
Yeah, you were downstairs.
You were upstairs living a nightmare, and I was downstairs living the opposite. And I think I remember just trying to understand how how joy and grief can coexist like this. And I know it was really hard for all of us siblings to navigate because they had me and then they had you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. But I also was there to experience you bringing your third baby, your son, into the world. And he's 1 year old now.
Mm-hmm.
But could you share some of the feelings that you felt that day? Because I had front row seat, which I felt really actually honored to be there. Like, I don't know if I even told you that either. I used my camera as an excuse to be there for sure. And I wanted to give you guys the best pictures ever of your birth story. But selfishly, I was there too for other reasons of my own that I just wanted, honestly, it was just an honor to be there to see you guys receive this rainbow after the storm. And so I got to see those emotions like in real time. But could you share what that felt like to bring your rainbow baby into this world?
Yeah. Oh, it was a lot of emotions. Joy being the biggest. I think shock was another one. Because the last time I had, been in that room, it was a completely different scenario. And so I feel like part of me just like couldn't even believe we were here again. Because the last time I was like, I can't do this again. So I think joy and just gratitude, relief that he was coming out and that everything was okay. Um, yeah, just it's like hard to even put into words, but I think those three, joy, gratitude, and relief, would probably be the biggest. And he, I had some complications with that pregnancy too, and we later learned that, well, the cord was wrapped around his neck. I didn't know that at the time. And he also had a true knot, which our pediatrician told us at his first
I
visit.
don't even know what that is.
I didn't either. And he just, when we took him in, he's like, "Did you know that your baby was a true knot?" And I'm like, "Yeah, no, like what, what is that?" And it's when they have a knot in their umbilical cord. And
Oh, wow.
luckily, I mean, my water broke and I went into labor on my own. But I had some other complications and I was going to be induced later that week, I think the next day. And if things would have waited to that point, I don't know if he would have made it because, and even the pediatrician was said, like, he's a miracle that he's here because if the knot tightens, like they lose all their nutrition.
Wow.
And he was a really small baby, so I don't know if it had been because of the knot and because things were like, not as much was getting through as it could have been if there wasn't a knot. I don't know. But it just like reaffirmed to me that like it's in God's hands because that's just another miracle that he's even here. Like,
wow.
Even that. like me getting pregnant again, that's a miracle. Me keeping the pregnancy, that's a miracle. And him, getting through that, even with a knot in his cord. So yeah, I think, it's just hard to even put into words, but we're just so happy to have him. And it's like when you have more kids, it's like hard to imagine how life was without them. And that's definitely how we feel
Yeah,
with our youngest too.
I love that. Well, the last things I want you to kind of share with us is first, how do you honor Lennon, especially with, her siblings and helping them know who she was and that she was here. And then lastly is just, you are a story of a mother who has a sunshine baby and, all of these angel babies that are up in heaven, but then you have two rainbow babies as well. And so for mothers that are struggling with the same, or maybe they're struggling with the anxiety of this pregnancy that is going well, because of past traumas, what is something you would share with them? So going back to the first one, how do you honor Lennon, especially with your kids?
Yeah. So we had Lennon in 2022. So at the time, our kids were 5 and 2, I think. 5 and 3. 5 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
So they were pretty young, but we had them write letters to her to put or draw pictures. Couldn't write at the time. But just put little messages and hearts into her casket. And then now we live right by the cemetery where she's at. And so I feel like it's just part of our daily routine. Like she's right next to our church. She's on the way to pick all the kids up for school. So I feel like she's kind of part of our daily life in a weird way.
Not weird.
Not weird, but
Beautiful.
they'll just say hi baby Lennon anytime we pass, and like all the cousins say it too, which is fun to hear that like they remember her too. But we love like decorating her grave, and yeah, just my brother-in-law actually got us a book. This was the December we had her in August, and for that December he got us a little kids book that is like the Hosea family adventures. And it has her in it. And so they get to read about all these like make believe adventures, going into space and going, underwater and, whatever it is, being superheroes. And that's their favorite book. So I feel like that's a fun like way to honor her is to read through that, and just they can picture life with her a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, we love decorating her grave and just being close to her and driving by every day. Is always fun. Yeah.
Do you still do balloons on her birthday?
Yeah. We've done balloons each birthday. We just let them go and hang out at the grave for a while.
I love it. Okay. And then second question is, again, just a reiteration so you remember. For mothers that may have been like have dealt with this before, or maybe they're, entering into a pregnancy that is going well, but they're dealing with these anxieties of their past traumas with, miscarriages. What's something that you would say to them?
I think there's so many women deal with miscarriage, and it's so unfortunate that that's the case, but it is. And everyone's circumstances are different. And ours is unique because we've done tests and they've found nothing wrong. but others may have, different problems where, there is something preventing them from getting pregnant or keeping pregnancies. Maybe they don't have answers, maybe they do. I think just really sticking to your faith and trying to find hope, even when it's super dark. Yeah, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. And I sometimes feel guilty that we have 3 kids that are here with us when others still have gone through what we've gone through and have none here with them. And I don't know why it's worked out for us. But again, just to trust your instincts and advocate for yourself where you can, and just trust in God's plan for you. I feel like it's such a vulnerable thing, and it can be super hard on women. I know I took a lot of the blame on myself. Whether it's warranted or not, we just want our bodies to work the way God intended. And so when it doesn't, that's a lot to carry on your shoulders. So yeah, I think lean on God and find your support network around you, and just keep having faith that whatever's supposed to happen will. And that's all you can control at that point.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Kenz. I just would probably reiterate the same thing. Lean into God, and if you are not a person of faith, then you can lean into your loved ones. But thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time.